Fear Not, Episode 95. Hi, I'm Billy Atwell, and I believe that consistently facing your fears is the only way to realize your truest self and to make those confident choices that will help you to obtain your deepest held hopes and dreams. I have faith that this podcast series will show you that you are not alone, that it will strengthen you and give you courage to face your fears, and that it will help you to permanently cross over into a life of living beyond your fears. Join me on this journey as we listen and learn from others as they share their experiences in facing and overcoming their own fears. Hello, everybody. Today you and I are going to be joined by ppeirce. Hey, Penny, how are you today?
I am great, thanks.
ppeirce is a respected clairvoyant empath, visionary, author, and popular lecturer and trainer. She's one of the early pioneers in the intuition development movement, specializing in intuition development, inner energy dynamics, expanded perception, transformation, and dream work. She has worked throughout the U.S., Europe, Japan, South America, and South Africa since 1997, coaching business and government leaders, psychologists, scientists, celebrities, and those on a spiritual path about the hidden dynamics of what makes for true success. She is the author of 10 books, including the Transformation Trilogy, Leap of Perception. In addition, Penny has written Be the Dreamer, Not the Dream, a guide to 24-hour consciousness, and the Dream Dictionary for Dummies. Penny, can you take a few minutes just to fill in the gaps and maybe give us a brief glimpse of your personal life as well?
Well, I started off as a corporate art director way back when, and an interior designer, and learned a lot about, I think, intuition from doing those kinds of jobs where you would have to use, tune in on, like, for instance, to design a logo for someone, you'd have to tune in on who they were and what it should look like and abstract that out. And those are a lot of the same skills that later I started using when I opened up intuitively. And but once I started realizing that you could read people's character in their lifetimes, and I could understand sort of the mystery of the way people develop themselves, that really got my attention, and I haven't ever gotten tired of it. So doing that for years and years then taught me a lot about the inner kind of dynamics of consciousness, really, and energy and how things work, and gave me this habit of looking underneath the surface for trends, or sometimes I call it the inner energy blueprint that causes the outer form to be the way it is,
Okay.
and how you can change that and quickly change the outer form. So, and then personal transformation came out of that. So, and I certainly have dealt with fear a lot, and in my clients and in myself as well.
Penny, would you help us to understand what fear is?
Well, I certainly have thought about it a lot, and to me, a lot of these things come down to perception. And I like, actually, what helped me a lot with this was the Course in Miracles, where they basically say we have two emotions or states of being, and one is love and one is fear. And if you're in fear, you don't have love, and if you have love, you don't have fear. They're totally mutually exclusive. So that got me thinking a lot. And so I really have come up with the idea that fear is a natural byproduct, really, of separation. When you see something as separate from you, outside you, bigger than you, then you can feel like you have something to lose, and when you see yourself as love, and that creates unity, and that you're all interconnected with everything, the fear kind of goes away. So in my last book, Leap of Perception, I really have been writing a lot about the change in perception that we're all going through now, this big shift, that we're moving out of linear perception into spherical and holographic perception. When you have linear perception, you have separation. You have past, present, future, separated by some, fictitious empty space. You have beginning, middle, and end. You have all these linear things like cause and effect, thinking. Or the goal is out ahead of you in the future, and you have to use willpower to cross the empty gap between where you are now and that future thing. And so then that creates fear, I think, because we perceive that there's an outside world separate from us. And whenever you feel that way, that the world is bigger than you, more powerful than you, that you can't have what you want, you'll go into a kind of collapse of like almost turning yourself inside out. And that causes that experience of contraction, which is fear. But I think fear really is also the contraction that prevents energy flow. When you cannot connect with your soul, you cannot connect with your true inner guidance because the energy has stopped flowing, then you freeze up. And that really is what fear is, I think. I don't know if that makes sense, from what you've been doing with your studies.
Yeah, very much so. Penny, how do you help your clients deal with that so that they don't contract? What's a technique that you use to help them keep expanding outward?
Yeah, the first thing is the idea of being centered and staying in the center of yourself and then radiating outward from there. So what happens is when you do that, you actually go into the spherical way of perceiving the world, because if you get quiet, close your eyes and feel your energy field around you, like your aura, it's a ball, right? It goes out equidistant from the front, the back, the top, the bottom, side to side, and it actually is a ball of energy around you. And that ball or sphere is your present moment, and it's your current reality, and it's your conscious mind. And it actually can change scope. You can have a small sphere where you're focusing up close on like writing a copy for your website, or you can meditate and the sphere expands hugely and starts including more and more and more of life and of the dimensions, and you suddenly everything inside that sphere is you, and you realize, oh, I'm a much bigger situation than I thought. So part of that is you can't be in the sphere unless you're centered. Fear occurs whenever you project away from center into another time period, another space, another location, another dimension, and you leave your own center. Sometimes I call that the donut and the donut hole quandary. Your mind goes out away from center, and you're left with an empty hole in the middle of yourself. When you feel that emptiness in the core of who you are, where you should be, and you can't feel yourself, it causes you to be very scared. But meanwhile, your mind is out thinking about the future or the past or somebody else or some other location, and you're not noticing the guidance that arises from the center point. And that's where guidance comes from, not from outside, because there's no outside. It comes from within every particle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been very interested and almost borderline obsessive about this concept of being in the center lately. I've come across some Buddhist and early Christian artwork, if you will, where the concept of the wheel and being in the center, both Buddha and Christ saying being in the center. And I find it fascinating. It's like when you're on that sphere, you're going up and down, you're all through these cycles, but the power position is to be in the center. I'm not quite sure how to
Yes.
formulate that in words yet, but it is a big sort of, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. When you're in the center and you go into the spherical reality, that really changes the way your reality functions. And if you never leave the center, you always have access to your soul. And then you realize, I am the soul. I don't have a soul. I am it, and I'm here right now. Um, and that's that sort of a process that's happening, I think, to a number of people now where we're becoming more integrated selves. There's not two of us. There's not the personality and the soul. There's the soul inside the personality creating a physical experience, you know. And when you do that, and the soul actually merges with the physical world and the personality, there is no room for fear. Fear is a low frequency, where energy doesn't flow. But when you have the soul present, fear cannot exist in that field. The soul does not have fear, And so part of it is when you embody fully and you realize that, hey, this really is who I am. I'm diamond light. I'm sitting here right now, and there's nothing in the way. All the clutter is dissolved. Then what's really true at the highest level can just simply fall through and materialize. And it happens magically at that point. So part of what I do with clients or with classes and things is try to help people experience that sense of integration. Because if you get even one really clear experience of the true self and how magical creativity becomes when, you know, when you're not in fear and you're not separated, that you don't forget it. It's a real moment, and then you want more of it. So being centered, first step. Second phase, I think, is realizing that you have a big ball around you that expands and contracts, and yet there is never anything outside the sphere. It may seem that way to your left brain, but really, as soon as you think of a new thing, the sphere has already expanded so that you could think of it. There's actually no outside. Everything's inside. Because you are, in effect, the entire unified field. And the sphere is just the zoom lens on your camera. Your whim of the moment, of how much you want to encompass in that moment. But you really are the whole thing. Yeah, that really, I tell you, it really dissolves fear.
So, how do you get your clients in that state of mind? What do you do exactly to help them get there and to experience that so they do know that it's real, and then they create that sort of drive or hunger to maintain it?
Well, I think there are guided visualizations and meditations where they, when you do them in a way where they're also tactile. Like I have one meditation that's actually a free giveaway on my homepage of my website under the frequency book of the diamond light body, which is let's imagine it, your soul. It has no blockages in it. It's just pure, glossy, clear light, very neutral, but very loving. And it's behind your back, and it puts its hands on your shoulders, and then it steps inside or slides inside. And every part of it matches up with the physical part of you. So you have a diamond light brain, and you have diamond light kneecaps, and you have diamond light blood and a diamond light heart going into the physical organs and parts so that they can remember their ideal form. And then you just say, hey, teach me, show me. I've forgotten a lot, help me out or get rid of my shadows. And you just sit there and let the light work on you and fall into it. And as you do that, you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm the diamond light body. Oh, yeah, and I'm here now in the body. I'm making this reality up the way I know how to do it and what I want. And the soul really does understand what the life is supposed to be about to learn the lessons you need. No.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, do you have a theory about what the light is? Does that make sense?
What the light is, I think we visualize spiritual energy as light, and in a certain level in meditation, when you get to maybe it's a certain frequency you get to, you see light, and that could just be a high frequency of energy that's translating itself through our senses. Sometimes people hear, music of the spheres. It just depends what sense I think you're using. But diamond light is not a color. It's not really sort of the earth so much. It's much more neutral and I would say just more universal.
Mm-hmm.
And it does convey a quality of glossiness and purity and like cool mountain air or, clear water, that kind of sense of purity, which is very much of the soul.
Trying to think of a next question.
Well, I can, why don't I share? I'd like to share actually a couple of things that have scared me.
Okay.
And one of them was when I was asked to be a keynote speaker at a really huge conference of operating room managers in the medical profession and to talk about intuition for medical personnel. And I have never done a keynote before. Keynote speakers are a certain breed, I think. They really can memorize their script and they know every gesture and they're real performers and they're funny and all that. And I think I'm much more of a teacher or a trainer or a lecturer, let's say. So I tried to write it out by hand as a script and then tried to memorize it or read it, and I could not do it. And I struggled for months trying to get something that would sound natural. And the more closer it came time to do this big talk, the worse I got. I thought I was having a heart attack. It was so bad. And finally, I just decided I can't do it this way. I am not a frozen language style person. I have to do it the way I know how to do it and involve people or give people experiences and just be sort of natural. And so I did that. And at first, I had a breakout workshop with about 100 and some people in it. And people started getting up and walking out of the workshop when they found out they had to sit next to people or they had to do something with another person. They did not want contact. And the same thing in the keynote, they sat over by the door. So no one was in the front of the podium. And I was talking to all these people in the back of this huge auditorium. It was just unbelievably awful. And I got fired from doing the second second talk on the East Coast, I guess it was. So I started thinking about that finally after it was over, and I realized there was nothing wrong. It wasn't bad. It's just that I did not fit with those people. There was a real mismatch of frequency, and the style of what they were expecting is just not what I am. So in some ways, that I think that fear was really a kind of or you could call it anxiety, was really a sense that I was showing myself that I'm not going to fit here. This is not working energetically. And it was more that was the message rather than fear. But it sure translated into fear. But once I told the truth and realized that I don't really want to do keynote speeches anymore, perfectly fine. I got the lesson, and often that's been the case, is that you can call it fear, but really what it is your own intuition telling you something. For instance, you might feel like your left brain might be forcing you to take an action, and yet you balk at it and you don't really want to do it, and then you make yourself all nervous. Oh, I'm not going to get it done. But really what's going on is you're missing a piece of information you need, say, or timing is not right with somebody else who needs to be in play. And there's a very good reason why the anxiety starts up, and usually it's not about something being wrong with you. It's often just data that's missing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I was listening to your situation, and sometimes, and I think most people would probably think that is failure as opposed to a learning experience. And that's where I think most people give up when that fear comes. It's like, oh, well, I shouldn't be doing this. And they give up as opposed to assessing the data and, no, I'm not supposed to do it this way.
Right. Right.
So what advice could you give us to help us to understand that so that we can see the situation a little bit more clearly?
I think it helps to develop your intuition more, basically, so that you understand that sometimes I call it truth and anxiety signals, that the body always gives us a read on things, so that if you get let's say an opportunity that is really just right for you and it's your perfect next thing, your body will respond like spring fever. You'll get excited like a little kid, you'll lean toward it, you'll get bubbly, energy will usually come up your spine and down and out your arms, and people say, oh, I got chills hearing that. So when something's true for you or really good for you, you'll get energy releasing and flowing. And when something's not quite right for you and it's not going to go well or even dangerous, you'll get a contraction of energy. Or often it can feel cold or clammy, like the energy retracts from your hands and feet into the core of your body, and you'll feel paralyzed, or you'll pull away, or you'll get a knot in the pit of your stomach, in the solar plexus area, or maybe in your throat, or like I did in your chest. And those are signs, immediate signs that, hey, something's not quite right here. It's not that I'm afraid. It's that I might be missing information. This might not quite be right for me. Now let me look further into it and see what's really going on. And that's where you ask yourself these leading questions. And then you trust your own, I call it your inner perceiver, to answer those questions. And you trust what you get. And if you stay with it and wait for the information, and yet the feeling is still the same, then don't do it. Um, so I mean, you can make yourself do something and then just have a failure. If you have to go that far, which is what I did, but then you really learn the lesson for once and for all. But yeah, if you pay attention, first of all, to those truth and anxiety signals, even about what to eat or when to leave the house to be on time, you can feel subtle differences in stop, go, and I think this can help reduce fear as well, because, when you have all the information, you're fine, really.
Penny, if someone would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is really through my website, which is just my name, ppeirce.com. And there's a lot of information on there, a lot of free stuff, but there's information about my consultations and my calendars there and all that sort of thing.
Also, Penny, what parting advice would you like to leave with us today?
I think that we need to start to become aware of the difference between our left brain perception and our right brain and heart perception. The left brain is what we've been trained to think with and believe. But often it's very protective, and it doesn't like change, and it doesn't want us to be in danger. So it takes experiences from the past and projects them onto the present. And of course, the present may not be at all like the past situation, and keeps us in a hesitation. In other words, a lot of times it will speak with negative declarative sentences like, well, I don't do that, and I've never done public speaking, and I can't do that, But if you can catch those things, even write them down and turn them around into the positive version of that and say, well, I might enjoy public speaking, or maybe I'd learn something about energy or people, it could be interesting. Well, that's at least a statement that allows the energy to start flowing toward it. And really, fear is only, I think, a reaction to lack of energy flow. And there's so many other things that actually are underneath fear, that if we can go down under those things, I think we can do away with it.
That's something to think about, and thank you for leaving that with us. I'm definitely going to think about that. Penny, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. You've been so generous with your time and knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Nobody's asked me about this kind of thing before, so it's interesting to think about it.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, you cannot achieve everything, but you do have the God-given ability to achieve anything. So stay focused, out of fear, and keep on keeping on. Until next time, be well and peaceful. For more information on today's episode and guest, or for resources that will assist you in overcoming your fears, visit livingbeyondyourfears.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, where 3 times a week we move to a life beyond our fears.